States that back Syrian opposition groups are pushing the country even deeper into crisis, says Russia's foreign minister, who took the floor at the UN General Assembly. Sergei Lavrov said a comprehensive ceasefire was needed to stop the violence. He also urged the UN Security Council to resume debates on the humanitarian limits to sanctions. RT's Marina Portnaya reports from New York.
Russia's foreign minister, Sergei Lavrov, talked about a variety of issues, but clearly Syria dominated his speech. Foreign Minister Lavrov says he believes, and Russia believes, that there's still an opportunity to end the conflict and crisis in Syria, but it will require some fierce international consensus. He says the international community must come together to demand a ceasefire in Syria by both the government and the opposition, to demand the release of prisoners and hostages and allow for humanitarian assistance. Russia's foreign minister said that he believes that one of the very big problems is that all members that signed the Geneva Communique are not fulfilling their responsibilities and obligations. He said it's very important for the six-point peace plan that Kofi Annan outlined many months ago, for that peace plan to be the foundation in which there could eventually be a resolve to the crisis that's escalating in Syria. But he said what is most troubling for Russia is that many Western countries that are supporting the opposition are only demanding for the Syrian government to cease fire, but are looking the other way when the Syrian opposition is waging very deadly attacks.
Those who oppose the implementation of the Geneva Communique take upon themselves an enormous responsibility. They insist on a ceasefire only by the government and encourage the opposition to intensify hostilities. But in doing so, they essentially push Syria even deeper into the abyss of bloody internecine strife. Extremist organizations, including Al-Qaeda, have become more active in Syria. They perpetrate attacks against innocent civilians and civilian infrastructure.
Foreign Minister Lavrov said another serious concern is the use of unilateral sanctions, particularly by Western countries. He believes that these unilateral sanctions taken outside of the United Nations, for example, on Syria, the U.S. and European countries imposing, reduces the credibility, first and foremost, of the Security Council, and also can escalate humanitarian crisis further. Foreign Minister Lavrov said that at this point it is a very important time, he believes, for international relations to come together and the credibility to not be compromised even further by there being many divisions within the UN and the Security Council on a variety of issues.
Meanwhile, Syrian activists report more casualties, although rebels' claims of advances on several fronts in the city of Aleppo have seen no breakthrough. On Friday, the U.S. Defense Secretary reported Syria had moved some of its chemical weapons for security reasons, but said the country's main stockpile remains intact and under government control. President Obama said the threat of chemical weapons could be a red line for the U.S. to act in Syria. This as Washington pledged additional $1 million aid to the Syrian opposition to help fight against Assad. Political analyst Jacob Hornberger says U.S. intentions in the region are driving Syria further from a peaceful solution.
Well, it's the standard policy of the U.S. government. It is designed to oust rulers of regimes that are independent of what might be called the U.S. military empire and replace them with pro-U.S. rulers. So we have the dichotomy of supporting dictators in countries that are loyal to the U.S. government and trying to oust dictators that are not loyal to the U.S. government. The U.S. is committed to the ouster of the Assad regime, and whatever you hear at the United Nations is just designed for the American taxpayer, the American voter, create the appearance that the U.S. is interested in spreading democracy and freedom, when in fact it has a long history of supporting dictatorial regimes in Saudi Arabia, Egypt, Iran under the Shah of Iran, Syria itself. Don't forget that the CIA used the Assad regime to torture some of its rendition torture victims. And so the whatever goes on in the UN is really ridiculous and senseless.